unemployment rate in the United States ticked up to 4.1% last month.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bitwarden Password Manager. Designed for individuals and businesses, Bitwarden helps secure sensitive information across devices without the need to remember multiple passwords for every account. Learn more at bitwarden.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. It's the first jobs report to cover the period fully after President Trump came into office. The U.S. added 151,000 new jobs. The unemployment rate rose just a little bit from 4 to 4.1%. For more on this, we're joined by Julia Coronado. She's founder and president of Macro Policy Perspectives and a professor at the University of Texas, Austin. Julia, good morning.
Good morning.
So, the unemployment rate moved from 4.0 to 4.1%. Is that something we should be worried about?
I wouldn't say worried yet, but it is a sign of softening. If you look at the details, we also saw a rise in underemployment. So more people working part-time and preferring to work full-time, but not being able to find those jobs.
Now, why is underemployment important?
It's often the sign of softening conditions. So when people are looking for work and they want full-time work but can only find part-time jobs, that's an indication that employers are possibly getting more cautious in hiring.
Did we start to see the impact of federal layoffs or funding freezes in this report?
Very early days, we did see 10,000 in job losses at the federal government level, but we would expect to see more in the March report. The impact of the bigger layoff program did not show up in this report yet.
Yeah. So overall, main takeaway.
Main takeaway is that we see some softening here. It's still a solid number, still good conditions, but the direction of travel does look to be softening conditions.
Julia Coronado, founder of Macro Policy Perspectives, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
President Trump imposed taxes on imports from Canada and Mexico and China on Tuesday. Now he's put a month-long pause on some of those goods. Take just one example of how any good from a list can affect business here. Potash. Canada produces a lot of it. It's used to make fertilizer. President Trump raised the tax on that to 25% and then reduced it to 10%. Still an added expense for farmers. And farmers aren't just being hit by import taxes. They're also facing revenge tariffs from other countries on what they try to export. Marketplace's Justin Ho has more.
Right now, farmers are starting to think about what they're going to plant this coming spring. But now that China has slapped retaliatory tariffs on big export crops like soybeans,
some of those producers are thinking, well, should I be planting as many soybeans as normal if we're potentially going to be losing some of that demand?
That's Naomi Bloom with Total Farm Marketing. She says in some parts of the country, farmers might decide to diversify and grow crops that can be sold domestically.
They might decide that they would plant barley instead of soybeans, or they could plant oats.
But farmers don't always have that option. Alex Schaefer at Oklahoma State University says the climate and soil in his state dictate what farmers can grow.
If I'm a farmer in Oklahoma, I don't have the choice really between wheat, which I might export, versus apples, which I would want to sell domestically.
Either way, Schaefer says farmers are going to have to make tough decisions on what to plant, not knowing how tariffs will play out. I'm Justin Ho for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all up in the 1 to 0.4% range, with the Dow futures up 29 points. And if you are in love with Taco Bell, as well as a person, you are in luck. You can get married at the Taco Bell Cantina in Las Vegas, fully catered by Taco Bell, including a garter and bow tie made of sauce packets and champagne. The whole wedding will set you back $777.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance, providing direct car insurance rates side by side with other insurance carriers. Customers can see rates and find an option that works for their needs. Now that's Progressive. Learn more at progressive.com.
Non-dairy milks have become particularly popular over the past few years. Oat milk, almond milk, soy milk, rice milk, coconut-based milk, sorghum milk, and yes, the FDA said people can call it milk. They said that a couple years ago. These can be found on menus nationwide, and they are changing how restaurants are setting prices. Marketplace's Daniel Ackerman went on an investigative reporting trip to his local Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru.
I'm not usually a non-dairy milk guy, but on my coffee run this morning, I wanted to see something.
Hi, what can I help you?
Large iced coffee with almond milk, please.
Do you have anything else?
No, but does that almond milk cost extra?
No.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
No problem.
This week, Dunkin' dropped its surcharges on drinks with non-dairy milk. Starbucks did the same last year. So have lots of indie coffee shops. One person excited about these developments is Lizzie Fryer.
I'm an oat milk fan, yes.
Oat milk fan and director of menu research at the consulting firm Technomic. And Fryer says for Gen Z and millennial consumers especially,
at coffee cafes, they're expected to have these types of non-dairy milks on offer.
But those alternatives aren't cheap. A gallon of oat milk can be twice the cost of a gallon of cow's milk. So coffee shops charging a little extra might make sense. But, says Steven Zagor of Columbia Business School,
customers rebel when they look at a surcharge. It's like a company directly sticking their hand in their pocket.
Zagor says that's especially true for consumers with dairy allergies or who just prefer plant-based milks for ethical or health reasons.
And then you go to a Starbucks or you go to a Dunkin' and they're being penalized for trying to be healthy.
And it might not be a coincidence that the country's two biggest coffee chains are dropping the extra fees right now, says Miguel Gomez, a professor of food marketing at Cornell.
Both companies have faced legal challenges that argue that the surcharges were discriminatory.
And in the grand scheme of running a coffee shop, Gomez says giving away a bit of non-dairy milk isn't a huge deal.
The cost of milk to make coffee is so small, is single digits as a share of the total cost is so small that I think the companies will absorb this cost and they are not going to increase prices.
Gomez says the coffee shop landscape is so competitive, he expects more chains to follow suit. Otherwise, they might lose their customers to the Dunkin' down the street. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
And in New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Even on a Friday, you can check in at 4:30 and get a wrap-up of Even on a Friday, you can check in at 4:30 and get a wrap-up of the day's business news on Marketplace here on 91.5 WBEZ. Good morning. I'm Mary Dixon. It's 7:59, and coming up in the next hour, Deerfield-based Walgreens is going to be acquired by a private equity firm. Drug overdose deaths were down in Illinois. Illinois residents say there's no state flag like our old state flag. The Bulls and Kobe White score a win in Orlando. And we're expecting some rain and snow later today with a high around 35 degrees. This is WBEZ HD Chicago 91.5 FM, WBEQ Morris 90.7 FM, WBEK Kankakee 91.1 FM, and W219 CD Elgin. Thanks for listening. More news is coming up from NPR and the WBEZ Newsroom.